Hey everyone, it's the spring and you've put out a student survey, and this is from one of my students. I've de-identified it here, but you get a lot of responses back, and you have something like 56 questions, and you have who the teacher is and the period, and then you have a series of questions where, in this case, you can see there's some, we call them Likert scale. There's some response set that you've given. And you want to figure out how to analyze this. This is a lot of data to work with, and you just want to work initially within Google Sheets, how to work through it. So I'm going to do a few different things. In this video, I'm just going to use the Countif function to start to summarize these data. And this will be good if you're just interested in looking at across the school as a whole, not necessarily if it's for a specific teacher or a specific period for that teacher. We'll do that in other videos. But for this video, just looking at how you might be able to summarize these data for individual items across the entire school to get a summary. Okay, so I'm going to use this question here. How comfortable do students feel participating in class? And you can see here, it looks like we have very comfortable, somewhat uncomfortable, somewhat comfortable. There's going to be a middle category, neither comfortable nor uncomfortable, and very comfortable. So there's this scale we have. There are 5 items here on a comfort level. What I'd like to do as well, and something you can do with these data, we're going to insert this blank column here, and I'm just going to copy this same item right into D. So now C and D are the same, but on the top here, I'm going to call this comfort, and I'll call this number. Because what I'm going to do first is I'm going to convert these strings, these letters, categories that we've been given, and make them numbers. So for very uncomfortable, I'll make it a 1, and for very comfortable, I'll make it a 5, and everything else in between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to replace these, and we'll do that by selecting column D here, doing edit, find, and replace. And I'm going to find, for example, very uncomfortable, and I'm going to replace that with a 1, and I want to replace all those. Okay. And then the next one's somewhat uncomfortable, and I'm going to replace that with a 2. And the third one is, I'm actually just going to go somewhat, just to do this quicker. Somewhat comfortable will be a 4. And then very comfortable will be a 5. I've replaced those. And then we've got this neither uncomfortable nor comfortable. And that we're going to make that middle category of a 3. Okay. So we've done that now. So we can see here that we've got our comfort item, and we've got now a comfort with a number. And why we're going to do that is I'll show you that in just a second. But to summarize these, you could do it on a new sheet if you wanted. I'm just going to do it right below the data just to summarize it conveniently so you can see it and make the formulas easy. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom. We can see we had 1,204 responses. And what I'm going to do in this category is, or in this column, is I'm going to type each of these categories. So we had, and I'll do it from uncomfortable to comfortable. So we had very uncomfortable. We had somewhat uncomfortable. We had neither. And then we had somewhat comfortable and very comfortable. Okay, so those are our categories. Now we're going to use that Countif function. So it's going to look within the column that we select, and it's going to count it. And we want to do this column C. So it's going to be from C2 to C1205. And I'm just highlighting this column here, the data, and I want to count it. And oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I want to count it if it's very, if the word here has very uncomfortable. And it has to be exactly spelled right, and it's case sensitive. And it looks like it counted 122 of those. Now, to make it easy on myself, you don't have to do this. You could do this for each one, but I'm just going to put $signs before the letters and numbers here, and that's going to fix it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these into each other, and then I'm just going to change this string value. So instead of very, I'm going to do somewhat. This was just to save a little time. Somewhat uncomfortable count. We know it was neither uncomfortable nor comfortable. And it was very, somewhat, not uncomfortable, but comfortable. And very comfortable. So there's my distribution. You can see we had 122 students that on this item of how comfortable the students feel participating in class. We had 122 that felt very uncomfortable, 113 somewhat, 185 that were right in that middle zone. We had 317 that were somewhat comfortable, and 467 the most that were very comfortable. Now, to get a sense of the scale, we have this 1 to 5 scale. Sometimes it's nice to just know the mean, like what's the average of that? And that's when we're going to use this number column. So we'll just use an average. And we're going to use column D, and we're going to go D2 to D1205. So on this scale of 1 to 5, we can see that our students are at 3.74 is kind of their average on this scale. So, closer to the comfort scale, living somewhere just below somewhat comfortable. And you can see that's this distribution. Now, what I can do, I've just done this for 1. Now we have 56 items. That's a lot to do, right? I mean, this way helps provide some information. I think it creates this nice distribution. You could create a bar chart from this if you wanted, just by selecting these and inserting a chart down here. So you could have a bar chart showing that distribution. But this is one way to go about doing it. And you would have to then do that for each one of these. Now, some of these, like this one here, has the same scale of comfort. So you could, if you wanted to, paste this into here and just change that range, the column range that you use to match this one, for example, column H. So change those C's to H's and paste those in there, and that'll get you that distribution. So that's something you could do. I guess we could just to show that, paste that right here and just change that to an H. All right, and then you could do the same thing here for each one of these. H, 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 H. Oops. I did something on there. Oh, holy cow. Sorry, guys, there. So you can see this distribution on this overall, how comfortable or uncomfortable do you feel in this classroom? You can see students feel a little more positively here. So we had more that were in the somewhat uncomfortable and fewer that were in very or somewhat. Now I didn't do this number replacement, so I can't get that mean yet, but I could of course add a column and do that same find and replace that I did and get the mean here. And you'd see it'd be higher than 3.74, it might be even closer to 4, maybe a little bit over 4. But that's one way to go about analyzing the survey data. Check out my other videos for other ways that may be a little quicker.